biosecurity might be a new concept for our audience. So, can you explain what that means and what you guys are doing there?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so I think of biosecurity as the set of measures that allows to protect against the spread of infectious disease, whether in humans
Okay.
or increasingly we see a lot of diseases come from animals or plants originally, and so really broadly speaking across the kind of biological systems we care most about. And so it includes some practices like being able to quarantine and hygiene and whatnot, but also surveillance systems that allow us to be able to capture when there's variants of concern in a particular area and be able to monitor those. So critically, I think as a society, we've learned a lot from COVID-19 that shows how those places in the world that invested heavily in surveillance technologies were able to weather that storm substantially better than ones who didn't. And I think we're really thinking about how we can apply the methods, the lessons from COVID-19, and think about how we can use those for whatever the next generation of threats are. Many of them will be natural. Some of them might be non-natural and driven by malicious actors. And a lot of the ultimate ability to deter those, though, comes from being able to continuously monitor and respond to those types of biological changes.
Okay. And so then you talked about the surveillance systems. What other kind of things do we need to do for biosecurity?
I think of it as a few things. I mean, surveillance is a massive part of it. When we say surveillance, I'm not talking about like NSA spooky surveillance. I mean things like wastewater monitoring, right? Like being able to
Oh,
across the
okay.
world, one of the things we work on, for example, is coming out of literal airports. We take the wastewater coming out of airplanes and we sample it,
Mhm.
and it's in a way that is it's sort of collective across lots of airplanes. So there's no individual human beings assigned to that, but as a result, you can take that de-anonymized data and get a hugely impactful understanding of the types of viruses that are spreading in a particular population and kind of where they're coming from and where they're going. And so we started to expand that particular business across the world. And I think that's just, I think if you look broadly at the world's ability to detect this kind of thing, you might intuitively think that, oh, we must be monitoring for viruses everywhere. Like, of course, after what we've seen the
Yeah.
last half
Yeah.
decade, we would be doing that. But in fact, we're not. Basically, almost nowhere in the world are we actively monitoring, or is anyone actively monitoring the viruses that are spreading in that part of the world. And that's why when a new virus pops up, we usually have no clue where it came from. And so this is a big challenge, and I think that's where we're looking to expand our possibilities. And then I think on top of that, I think there's the opportunity for building tools that allow people to respond to that, right? So you might discover
Mhm.
there's a virus, but I think, can you actually predict with any reasonably high accuracy how bad this is? How virulent is it going to be? How deadly could it be? How different is it from things you know? How similar is it to things that you know in the past? And being able to use
Mhm.
that to allow policymakers or NGOs or whoever to be able to respond
Mhm.
appropriately to what those concerns are. And the reality is there's new viruses and new mutants of things every single day. The question is, they're not
Yeah.
always worth doing something about. Evolution can kind of sort itself out most of the time, and our immune systems can sort itself out most of the time. But occasionally you end up with COVID, or something much worse. You can imagine if COVID were 30% more deadly and 2x more virulent, it would probably have
Yeah.
killed dozens X more people. And so
Yeah.
I think thinking about how we can prevent and detect those types of things is really important.
Do you think we are much better prepared now than in 2020 at this point?
I would say no, we are not. I think
Okay.
the world is still incredibly underinvested in mechanisms to be able to detect, deal with the political courage to respond to, and whatnot, these types of threats. I think that we're better off in that in the last 5 years, we all at least have the clear memory of what happened, and there
Mhm.
may be more willingness to respond at a faster speed. But in terms of, have we built the fundamental monitoring infrastructure at sufficient scale that we could reasonably expect that we would be able to mitigate that? Not even close. I think there's an incredible opportunity to expand that. And I think that's where I'm excited we're playing a part in that. But I think that'll be ultimately a commitment by the world's governments to make that happen.